Here we go. Well, Radio FM 88, and we're in the studios here in Brisbane. The temperature's around about 30 degrees this morning at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday. It's Tuesday night over in the States. And of course, our co-host is based in Florida. And our guest today is from Las Vegas. So it's without further ado, I'm just going to pass you straight over to Elise and our guest, Brent.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I am honored to present to you Brent Michael Phillips. He is has an amazing story and really, truly has a really cool information today. And I'm going to let him speak about it because it's quite interesting, and it has to do with movement and moving the body to manifest and to heal. So Brent Michael Phillips, thank you for being here. Welcome. And please tell us all about you, how all this happened, your beautiful story on how you arrived into this incredible technology, and anything else that you want our beautiful audience to hear and know about you.
Yeah. So first thing to know is that if you had told me 30 years ago that I'd be a professional healing practitioner and a spiritual teacher, I would have thought you were on drugs or you thought it was a joke, like where's the hidden camera, right? Because I never in a million years thought I'd do this. My background is all science and engineering, technology. Because when I went to college at MIT, it sounds funny today, but I discovered the internet. That was 1989. And I was like, wow, the internet is so cool, right? So I made that the focus of my studies, and then got my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, and I was working on my PhD. That's when the internet boom hit. And I figured, wow, this is my gold rush. And it had been my dream because I had loved video games as a kid. I played Asteroids and Donkey Kong and Pac-Man and, I go on and on, Dragon's Lair and blah, 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 right? I love video games. I had always kind of wanted to be a video game developer. And I thought, wow, I wanted to build specifically online games because there really was no such thing at the time. And so I left MIT and recruited my lifelong best friend. And first company we founded was to do websites. As you figured there's a good way to get going. And at that time in 1995, websites were brand new and huge, right? Everyone wanted a website. And it's kind of funny. My very first website I ever built in my entire life was the website for the launch of the Sony PlayStation. That was in the summer of 1995. And don't tell MIT I used their computers and their internet line to do it. As again, commercial internet barely existed at the time. It was really your best bet was if you knew someone at a university to get an internet connection. But we created the websites and had a lot of success with that. That allowed us to start the video game studio. And really that was going great for a while. A year after, we had a publisher. We had 15 people on our team. We were hitting the deadlines and we really thought this was going to be the next best thing. And we had a couple crises hit. One was very personal to me that, long story short, I wanted to be successful with these startups more than I had ever wanted anything. And I was willing to do the work and make the sacrifices. So I had been working, no exaggeration, 80, 90, 100 hours a week, year round. There was no weekends, no holidays, no vacations, no breaks. On Christmas, I take 2 hours off to be with my family, then right back to work.
Wow.
Because I figured, I was living my dream. I really thought we were going to be successful. And, the game would touch a lot of people and so on. But my body broke down. I just couldn't handle it physically. And it started with, little bits of nagging pain and stiffness. But then it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was in a lot of pain. And it was hard to work. And you'll find this particularly amusing. When I first started having really bad pain, I just went to the doctor. Because I figure, the doctors will know what to do to take care of it, right? Because up to that point in my life, it had always been simple. You get sick, you're hurt, you go to the doctor, they do something for you, right? Then you recover and life goes on. But it didn't help. And long story short, I spent the next 3 years in intensive physical therapy, trying to work as much as I could, trying to move forward with the companies. But I just got worse and worse and worse. I was in so much pain I had to move in with my parents because there were
Wow.
some days I needed help just cutting my food or getting my clothes on. It was really getting bad, and the therapy wasn't helping, and it was so frustrating. Then we had our first disaster, which was our publisher went out of business unannounced, and we lost all of our funding and our marketing arm and our distribution, and the
Wow.
game was only about half finished. So that was a huge disaster. Right around then, though, I thought finally I'm going to have an answer because I had been going to the Curl and Joe Clinic for physical therapy for 3 years. And that's one of the top PT clinics in the world. That's where they innovate surgeries, where the professional athletes and the Olympians go. And I got in to see the head doctor at Curl and Joe. And I thought, wow, this guy will know what to do, right? And I went in to see him, and I figured he'd have some miracle solution for me, a new surgery or a rehab or something, right? And I'd be out of pain and go back to work, and things might work out. But instead, he just looked at all my records and said, "I'm sorry, son, but there's nothing I or any doctor can do. You're always going to be in pain, and you're never going to be able to work again."
Oh my gosh.
And I was stunned because I didn't expect that, right?
Yeah.
I thought the guy at the top of the food chain would be the one with the answer. But he just said, nope. And when I left, he recommended me for a lifetime disability, which is very
Wow.
rare because I was still in my 20s.
Wow.
And it's actually very unusual to get lifetime disability that young, unless you're paralyzed or blind or have, some really horrible thing that happened to you. And I was devastated. And I went to go tell my best friend and business partner, and I thought he'd be all, "Brent, hang in there. We'll get through this together, blah, blah, blah," right? Because we weren't just best friends. We were close like brothers. That, when I was in Boston for 6 years, we talked on the phone every single day, really soulmates. And I thought he'd have my back. But I found out later he had been secretly dating the woman that I was in love with and pursuing. And he just saw this as a chance to get rid of me. He's like, well, if you can't work anymore, you don't have a place here. And so I
Wow.
got fired from the companies I had founded and basically was living in my, parents' basement with no hope of recovery, which was devastating. It wasn't just a trauma. It was an annihilation of my whole identity. So I lost my
Absolutely.
education. I lost my physicality. I lost my health. I was in pain all the time. I could never do the thing I was trained to do to make money. I mean, it was, and I lost my best friend, and I had a terrible heartbreak all at once. So it was really a wipeout, dark night of the soul, as they say, right?
Right. Yes.
And so what's so interesting is what happened after that. First, I was very depressed. I was using drugs, all the things you would expect. But I was very fortunate. I had a friend of mine turn me on to positive thinking. And nowadays we call it the law of attraction, of course, right? But it's all the same stuff. They're like, "Brent, you need to go to this positive thinking weekend and you jump on the stage and shout out about how you're going to be a millionaire," right? And I put power words on my walls, and I made a vision board, and I said my mantras, and I was doing all these things. And that went on for about 6 months. But giant surprise, it didn't do anything other than run up my credit card bill, right? So I'm like, okay, positive thinking, no thanks. Gave up on that. Then I had another friend of mine turn me on to alternative medicine. And when I first got into alternative medicine, I was really excited. I thought, wow, maybe this could do the trick, right? People had told me, "Brent, maybe you should try acupuncture or homeopathy or some of these other things." And up to that point in my life, I had always thought the people that did that were either stupid or crazy. I'm like, why would you do a bunch of hippie quack stuff when you can just go to a real doctor, right?
Yep.
That's what I used to think. But I was desperate, so I was willing to try anything. So long story short, I spent 5 years living with my parents, collecting disability benefits, spending all that and a lot more, running up a big credit card debt, doing all sorts of alternative medicine. I had hundreds of sessions of acupuncture. I did, years with an osteopath and chiropractors and a homeopath. And, I had a chi machine and a vibration machine and, did all these cleanses and diets. I mean, I go on and on. So I was doing all this stuff for years and years, but it was so frustrating. I didn't get better. I got worse.
Wow.
My pain was getting worse over time, and no
Yeah,
one
because
seemed to have any answers.
You're paying so much attention to it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you're
that was
feeding
part of
the
it.
energy.
You're correct, but no one pointed that out to me, and I probably
Right.
wouldn't have listened. I probably wouldn't have listened even if you had told me where I was at
That's
the
true.
time, right?
Yeah.
But anyhow, this went on, and I was getting really increasingly desperate, especially when my parents divorced and sold the house. I had nowhere to live anymore.
Oh my gosh.
And so now I was basically putting my rent on a credit card, which is frightening
Yeah.
because you don't get to do that for very long, right?
Right.
You do it for a short time, then you blow up and go bankrupt. But and so it was frightening, and I agreed to participate in a research study for an experimental surgery.
Ooh.
And it was risky, of course, but I was desperate, and the doctor said, "I think this can help you." And I didn't cost anything. That was part of the deal, but it was experimental. And they did the surgery, and it went somehow wrong. And when I woke up from the surgery, my right arm was paralyzed. So that was kind of the rock bottom.
Yeah, for sure.
Because now I have nowhere to live, right? I have no money. I have no job. I'm in pain. My disability benefits wouldn't even cover, the smallest apartment you could find. So it was a terrifying place to be in. And my arm was frozen for a couple months. And it was then that it was actually my Aunt Lauren had told me about this woman named Terry that she knew from work. That Terry they'd worked in finance together. And Terry had gotten sick from black mold. And it almost killed her. But she found this process of energy healing that she felt really saved her life and gave her life back. And I remember she told me, "You should call Terry and have a session." And I downplayed it. I'm like, "No, that won't help me," right? That's hippie stuff. It's stupid. And I had done some energy healing before. I had done like some people doing pranic healing and Reiki healing and EFT, some of the more common stuff like that. And honestly, it never did anything for me. I wasn't against it. I'm just like, it's a waste of time, right?
Yeah.
I also found acupuncture to be a waste of time.
Yep.
Helps some people, and that's great. If it works for you, keep doing it, right?
Yep.
But I had like 400 sessions of acupuncture. It didn't help me at all. And that's how I felt about energy healing. But eventually, my Aunt Lauren said, "Okay, Brent, not only will I pay for the session, I'll buy you dinner. Just go." I was like, "All right." So I went to see Terry. And it's kind of funny. Part of the magic, I think, was I didn't have a big expectation. It's not like I was looking forward to it. Oh boy, I'm going to experience a miracle today. No, I was like, "Oh yeah, I have to go see this crazy healer lady, and then my aunt's going to take me out to dinner later." All right, whatever, right? Not like I had anything better to do that day, being on disability, right? And I had all the time in the world. And so I went to see Terry, and I remember she's sitting across the room from me. And it was all very interesting because the energy healing I'd done before was like hands-on. People would like wave their hands on you or, brush your shoulder or something like that, right? But she just sat across the room and would close her eyes, and it was all done with the mind. So that was kind of a new thing to me. And she asked me a lot of questions about my childhood and what had happened with my best friend and the loss of my career and all the pain I'd been in and all the, trauma I'd been through. And it was interesting, but here's the thing. I was thinking, lady, I'm not here to talk about my feelings, right? I can't move my arm and I'm in pain. And I didn't see how talking about our feelings had anything to do with it, right?
Yep.
That's just where I was at the time. And so I was getting a little impatient. And finally she says, "Okay, we're going to do a healing on your arm." And I'm like, "Yeah, you and what army," right? And so I remember so clearly I'm sitting there and she kind of went into a trance and her eyes went back into her head a little bit. And I remember looking out the window and thinking, "Gee, should I pick up something for lunch on the way home?" That's where my head was at.
Yeah.
And I felt suddenly there was this loud crack and pop in my elbow. And the way I would describe it is, all of us past a certain age get pops and cracks in our joints. It was like that, but like times 30, like much bigger to where I felt like it reverberated through me, like it shook me. It's like kaboom. And I was like, whoa. And Terry must have heard it because I remember she opened her eyes. She's like, "Okay, let's try your arm." And I did. And, I honestly couldn't believe it at first, but I could move my arm again, just like the surgery had never happened. So that was the moment that this very skeptical scientist and engineer had to open his mind and say, "Hey, there's really something here, you know?
Yeah.
And it was so crazy because, again, Terry, there was nothing hands-on about what she did. She wasn't tapping on my body or doing acupressure. There was no machine that we used. There was no tapping on the body, no mantras, nothing like I had associated with energy healing. It was just, talking and doing this block clearing thing. But I was like, oh my gosh, I think I want to do this, which is understandable, right?
Yep.
I was like, wow, because I had watched Terry. It took her about a year. She quit her job, learned healing, became a professional healer. And here's what's so funny. I was her first professional client. How cool is that?
Wow.
I was the first person she ever got paid to do healing on.
Wow. What did she call it? What was the name of it?
Well, her name was Terry O'Connell. Unfortunately, she passed away 13 years ago.
Uh-huh.
But
did she have a name for that? Did she have a name for the?
There is, but it's somebody else's trademark, and they're very litigious, so I don't want to say it.
Oh, okay.
I can say that it was based on a system originally developed by the Rosicrucians.
Oh.
And then other people learned it, and Terry was one of those.
Okay.
And applied it. And, it involved using theta brainwaves to work through the subconscious mind.
Wow.
And this was so fascinating to me. But before I talk about the next step, I just want to be honest and clear with everybody listening that the miracle of my elbow was real from the surgery, right? I couldn't move my arm for months, and then I could. But it's not like all my problems were solved in an hour. It wasn't that simple. So I still had all the same chronic pain. I still had all the movement problems. I was still depressed. I had a lot of PTSD. I was still broke. I had lost my career. Like, none of that changed. What did heal was just the bit from the surgery, right?
Yeah.
Huge. But it wasn't like all of a sudden I lived happily ever after. But I want to emphasize, especially to those listening, I was able to make progress, but it was measured in months and years on the core issues, on the repetitive stress injuries and the chronic pain and the PTSD and the back pain I'd had since junior high. And I go on and on, right? I had Lyme disease for 16 years, was part of it. I was also suffering from chemical poisoning from aspartame. So there was a whole lot of pieces I had to unravel. But over the course of a few years, I was able to make progress and come off disability and reduce my pain. I started exercising again. I formed a company, started doing healing just like Terry, teaching classes, doing sessions, right? I was able to start dating again. So it was great, and it allowed me to restart my life. But again, it wasn't like everything was perfect. It was finally I had some means to move forward, right?
Yeah. So you learned what she did with you. You went in and learned what she.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that took me a couple years, and I started practicing it and teaching it. And it was interesting that I'll have to admit, you'll find this, I think, quite amusing. When I first started learning healing, I thought it was going to be easy. I was totally full of myself because I had been valedictorian in my high school, National Merit Scholar. I didn't just go to MIT, I crushed MIT. I had perfect straight A's for 6.5 years. Plus honors and awards and things that would only mean something if you went there. So I was like academic superstar. And I thought, learning healing and talking to angels, this will be easy. No, it was impossible for me. I was terrible at it. I couldn't do it at all at first. And it took me years to understand why. It wasn't until I later met my mentor, Carl Wolf, that I understood this. I was so still stuck in my head, I couldn't feel my body or my intuitive senses at all.
Right.
And so Terry just took 2 seminars and started doing healing. That wasn't that easy for me. But what I did do was I said, okay, I'm going to play the hand I've been dealt. And rather than just listening to a seminar and spontaneously being able to do a healing or something, I decided to reverse engineer the process. That was my approach. And it took a while, but I was able to do it. First starting with Terry, then a bunch of other teachers, and then later Carl. I started studying carefully both from my experience and looking at the literature, because there's a lot of fascinating scientific literature on these things that's out there. to try to figure out how it worked. And that's what worked for me. So it was basically, I took energy healing, intuition, law of attraction, and I did with them exactly how they train their engineers at MIT. Take it apart, figure out how it works. Then you don't just put it back together, you make it better. You make it faster, more efficient, easier, right? That's the whole point of it. And that's what I did with energy healing, law of attraction, intuition, talking to angels, soul fragment, all that cool stuff. And and I was able to figure out really what was going on. So it's sort of the, just the facts kind of thing that I like to see myself. I'm an integrator more than an original creator, in the sense that 80% of what I practice and teach, I did not personally invent. Right? Just like I didn't invent meditation. I didn't invent subconscious clearing. I didn't invent energy healing. I didn't invent talking to angels. I didn't invent any of those things. What I did do was I studied with the best people who had and figured out how it worked. And then integrated it and then evolved it technologically. That's how I see my role. So I was not born with some incredible talent for healing or intuition. But through careful study and practice, I was able to build it and learn that skill. And I think that's what sets me, I'm not sure, it just makes me different than most teachers, in that, I've worked with a lot of incredible people doing all these cool things. There really are incredible people all over the world that can do sometimes miraculous things. Pretty incredible. But for most of them, one of the downsides is it's a natural talent or ability they have. And they don't fully understand what it is they're doing or how it works. They don't have to, right?
Right.
Just like, does Shaquille O'Neal need to learn a technique to dunk a basketball? No, he's 7'1". He just reaches up and throws the ball down, right?
Yeah.
he has such natural ability. There's no need for any learning. He's just easy.
Right. Exactly.
And that's what I found for a lot of people, including Terry and Carl, to some degree, my most important teachers. They had this great gift, which is awesome, right?
Yep.
But they didn't really know what they were doing. In terms of, I don't mean that they were idiots. What I mean is they didn't fully understand the forces they were harnessing.
Yeah, exactly. How it worked, the mechanics of it,
Right. They just knew if you do this, you do this, this thing occurs, right?
Yeah.
Like how Terry learned to clear subconscious blocks. Someone told her, visualize this and imagine this and then do this. And she did, and boom, blocks cleared. It's like magic recipe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And as engineers, because I am an engineer,
Awesome.
what we're taught is either, at least in industrial engineering, is more of take something and make it better. Mm-hmm. And so it was always, like you say, taking pieces of this, and this, like the best pieces of things, and then create something that's better. So just super interesting to hear that that's kind of what you.
No, you know what? It's what I did in tech as well.
Yeah.
When I built websites, what did we do? We looked at the cool websites. We took some of the best pieces and we built it, right?
Exactly.
Same thing with a video game. We played all sorts of different video games. One of the best things about being a video game developer, your video games are tax deductible. How cool is that? It's part of your business, right?
Right.
So I got to deduct all my video games for a couple of years. You take a piece. Oh, this game has this feature that's really cool. Let's use that, right? And this other game. That's what I mean by integrator. And engineers are natural integrators.
Yes.
That it's really the way I would describe it is scientists discover the laws of the universe. Engineers apply them and turn them into useful things we call technology.
Exactly.
And my goal was, again, I didn't invent most of this. I didn't invent the movement feedback holography or the beaming or spiritual awakening, right? Spiritual awakening has been around much longer than Brent.
Right.
But I learned them all at a deep level and try to put together the pieces to build something that's better, faster, easier.
Very cool. So tell us all about it. I'm dying to hear, how it works.
So I'm as an engineer and a scientist, I need to geek out just a little bit.
Okay.
Just a small amount, but we'll keep it contained. I see all this world of energy healing, intuition, law of attraction, etc., I see it as technology.
Yeah.
It's just technology that works with the human brain and nervous system rather than electronic computers built out of semiconductors. But all the same math and engineering principles apply. In particular, my background is software. I'm a software engineer.
Yeah.
So the subconscious
perfect.
mind is just software,
Yep.
period.
Yep.
And when I was learning healing, what I discovered was, wow, it's just like software. And
Yep.
the good news is learning to heal is actually much easier than learning to program, because you get a big slot factor with healing, right? If you're close, it'll still work. With coding in a computer, if you're one semicolon off, the whole thing breaks.
Right.
It's really exacting, right? It has to be
Yes.
absolutely perfect or it doesn't run.
Yeah.
And so why I see it as specifically as consciousness technology. That things like the law of attraction or Reiki healing or NLP, these are all just different modalities of applying the power of your mind to create useful results. No different than we plug in appliances to turn electricity into useful results, right? Keeps your refrigerator, keeps your food cold, your microwave warms it up, right?
Yeah.
Heats the room, whatever. And so I see it, all this stuff, because I've studied so many modalities. There's so much cool stuff out there. So many talented people. But I see it all as 3 generations, kind of like your cell phone, right? We got 2G and 3G and 4G and such.
Okay.
That there's 3 generations of self-improvement, spiritual technology, personal development, whatever we want to call that. And the first generation is what I would call kind of your old school positive thinking, law of attraction. So Think and Grow Rich and The Secret and a lot of Tony Robbins and things like that. So positive thinking, making a vision board, saying your mantras, right? Joining a mastermind group. And what I found is, I think for a lot of people, the first generation technologies, they're not wrong. They're just primitive. That we have better ways of doing these things now. It would be like saying a Model T from 100 years ago and a modern Porsche. They work on the same principles, don't they? They both have an internal combustion engine and a transmission and a gear shift and a steering wheel, etc. Four tires, right?
Yeah.
It's basically the same design, but the modern Porsche is a much more evolved technology, right? That's why most of us don't drive around in Model Ts, do we? We can get a newer car that's faster, safer, more comfortable, yada, yada, right? More fuel efficient. So it's not wrong to drive around in a really old car. It's just most people don't, because the technology's evolved, right? So the first generation stuff I have found largely ineffective on its own.
Yeah, for sure.
In combination with some of the more advanced things we'll talk about, can actually be useful. So to geek out a little bit, in engineering, we call that necessary but insufficient. In other words, this is something you should do, right? Positive thinking, etc. Yes, they're good. But that on its own probably isn't going to do what you want.
It's a good base. I would call it like
it's a good
the
place to
base,
start with.
like the like the base.
It's a good place to start with.
Yeah, exactly.
But most people do not find it highly effective.
No.
And otherwise, look at all the people that watch The Secret. Why aren't they all millionaires, right?
Yeah. Or law of attraction. I listened to law of attraction for years,
Are you
and I was
kidding me?
like,
Of course I
this
did.
stuff,
And I really believed it for a while.
Me too.
Yeah, it failed me so many times. Eventually, I had to go with the data and go, this doesn't work for most people most of the time, is what I would conclude. Yeah. There are exceptions, right? There are people who's changed their lives. It happens. But things get interesting in the second generation. That's what Terry introduced me to. And the difference is, with the second generation, we're directly working with the subconscious mind. And that's a game changer. Because what's the main reason the law of attraction doesn't work? There's more than one answer.
Yes.
I have a whole program called The Anti-Secret. There's a whole list of answers, but the one at the top I want to share right now, which is the subconscious mind.
Yep.
That's 90% of why your stuff doesn't work. There's internal blocks in your energy, and it's not your fault. You were probably born with it. Blame your ancestors, your past lives, a soul contract, your parents, something, right? It's probably not your fault, but it's there.
Yep.
And what Terry did with me that day when my arm healed, basically, she spent an hour clearing subconscious blocks on me. All the Q&A about my feelings was to help locate the blocks. I didn't know that at the time. That's what I learned later, right? When I became a practitioner, I'm like, oh, I get it. It's like debugging software. I get this, right? I get this.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm like, when I got that, I'm like, oh, I could do this. This is easy. Though I struggled with the intuition. That took me about 10 years. I finally got it. But that was the Carl work.
Yeah,
And
well, of course, once you heal, the intuition starts coming in.
Yeah. There is a sequence into it, you know?
Yes.
And the second generation techs were great because that's when you start to see medical miracles occur and your success rate becomes significant. You know, I wouldn't say anything close to 100%, but, you know, doing things like Psych K or theta healing or EFT or emotion code or NLP or things like that, they do create transformations and miracles for sure.
Yeah.
You know, I'd say anywhere from 5-10%, maybe to 20-30, depending on how you want to define miracle, right?
Yeah.
So I've seen plenty of people have great results, but again, not everybody. Why?
Yeah.
You engage the subconscious mind. So your results go from 1% to maybe 20. Better, but we're not done yet, right?
Right.
Well, what happened to me was a very short version. After Terry, I spent a couple of years healing my body, building a new business, and I kind of reclaimed my life. And then 5 years later, it all fell apart again. Another dark night of the soul, right? My wife left me. I got married, got divorced, had a bad car accident, got hired a criminal financial advisor who stole everything from me and bankrupted me.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was like dark night of the soul number 2. And I was really depressed for a while because I felt energy healing had failed me.
Yeah.
I had done all the sessions. I had, been meditating and saying my mantras. I've been doing yoga. I mean, I was, I thought I was doing all the right things and my life just collapsed and fell apart. And I blamed myself and I blamed the universe and, et cetera, et cetera. But it was so crazy that the day after I declared bankruptcy, I met the man who became my mentor. His name was Carl Wolf. And it was so crazy because before I went bankrupt, I spent my last $500 on a session with him because he had come very highly recommended from one of my friends. And when I met Carl for my first healing session, you got to remember, I had been a full-time energy healing practitioner for 5 years at this point. So I wasn't new to the woo-woo stuff. I was as deep in it as you get, right? This was my life, 40, 50, 60 hours a week for years, just doing this. And when I met Carl, I expected him to have, work out of his home or rent a room at the healing center or something like that. He goes, no, Brent, meet me at the rollerblade rental station at Venice Beach. I was like, well, that's a strange place to do a healing session, right? But I did. And I met him and he had me rent rollerblades and protective gear and put it on. And then he had me rollerblade in circles around the parking lot for 20 minutes, which again seemed kind of crazy, right? Didn't look like any kind of healing I had ever seen. And after that, we then sat in his car and we watched the video. And basically, he just kind of criticized me the whole time. He'd be saying, Brent, you can't feel your left leg here, and you're out of relationship to your past here, and here you're denigrating your feminine. And I'm like, dude, what is up with you, right? And it was so crazy because, again, I was expecting a healing session where he'd have me meditate or tap on my body or play new agey music or something, right?
Right.
But at the end of the hour, he's just like, okay, well, we're done. Nice to meet you. And I was like, what the heck, man, right?
I just paid $500 for this.
Yeah. And I was so upset because 1, I didn't think we'd done any healing. And 2, I didn't think he'd done anything to fix me. Right? I expected him to give me a supplement or to change my diet or to give me a visualization or to at least smack me on the forehead and yell hallelujah. Right?
Right.
I'm like, I paid at least for that. Right? But no, he just sent me home. And I remember I called my buddy who had recommended him and I started to chew him out. I'm like, dude, what the heck is wrong with you? Right? I'm going bankrupt. I just spent my last money on this, blah, blah, blah. And I remember what he said, but he goes, Brent, I get it. Carl's out there. Doesn't look like anything you've done before, right? I'm like, yep, that's true. And what he said was, give it 3 weeks. And he goes, if something doesn't shift within 3 weeks, let me know and we'll try to make it right. And I was like, okay, not expecting anything to happen, right? But it didn't take 3 weeks. It didn't even take 3 days. That within 2 days, I had done an event and had a ton of people show up for no reason. And my business surged. And by the end of the week, I had made over $50,000. And I had never done anything like that before. I don't think I'd even ever had a $10,000 week before in the history of my business. So this was like 5 times more money than I'd ever made before in my life. All showed up 2 days after this session with Carl. And I remember I called my buddy. I'm like, dude, I am so sorry. You were totally right. That $500 for Carl was the best money I ever spent. As it gave a return of 100-fold within 2 days.
Right. Yeah.
How often does that happen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was really the last piece of the puzzle for me. Why? That was my introduction to the third generation. That the difference is the third generation technologies work in a different way. They're not based on the mind and its words. It's based on the body and movement and feeling. So there's a somatic aspect to it, and it's about your relationship to your body and how you feel your body. And it's there's definitely a deep spiritual aspect to it, what's some called awakening or non-dual realization, along with a meditative entrainment that makes your brain very plastic, that allows you to do some very deep and powerful rewiring. But I didn't recognize any of that at first, because in my first session with Carl, again, I was so in my head, I didn't recognize the meditative and entrainment piece. It was there, right? I was just oblivious to it. And I didn't understand that all the feedback he was giving me wasn't meant as criticism. He was trying to adjust my relationship to my own body and how I moved and felt things in my body. And that's where the healing occurred. But I didn't, again, because it didn't look like healing, I thought I just got caught. Then the results showed up. And what I found is that the second generation work with the more conventional healing is absolutely worth doing. That it's really powerful for physical healing. If you have an injury, an illness, good for trauma clearing. So there's a lot of benefits to it. What it does not do very well is embodiment. For example, you can read 100 spiritual books, but do you live in the full experience of those teachings? That's embodiment. And the Carl's work really through the movement teaches you, the short way I would describe it is it shows you how to get consciousness back in your body. And when there's more consciousness in your body, there's more of you to connect to the world around you. And that makes you more powerful and your life gets bigger. And this was something I did not understand or even see before. I had wondered why I could work so hard and be talented and do this and that and everything would fall apart. Now I realized that due a lot of childhood trauma and illness and things that had happened to me, I had squeezed the consciousness out of my body and was living from my mind. And that's why my body fell apart.
Well, a lot of us engineers do that because
Yes.
I had the same thing where it took me forever to get out of my mind. I mean, a good 8 years to get out of my mind. And that's what we do. I mean, that's why we're engineers.
Yeah, it was 10 years from when I met Carl to when he passed away. And that's about what it took me.
Yeah.
To where I was finally starting to get it. It really did take me 10 years. But that was the missing piece.
Yeah.
And when I started doing the embodiment work, the third gen stuff, it's weird and different because, again, it doesn't look like healing. It looks like a cross between maybe Tai Chi and physical therapy.
Oh.
But it's special ways of using meditation and movement to reconnect your nervous system and realign your body. And the way I would describe it is, with the second gen work, the belief work, NLP, things like that, very powerful for sure, worth doing, absolutely. But the you on the inside stays the same. You're just changing some of the code. But the you in the middle stays the same. With the third gen work, that you and how you perceive and relate to things changes fundamentally. And that's what I really needed. And for many people, that's what's required to really to move up big on the manifesting front, to make more money, to expand your career, to have a bigger reach in life, which, again, isn't for everyone. But if that's what you want, this is how you do it. Because again, the world responds to how much consciousness is in you at the end of the day. And it's good to debug that consciousness, absolutely. But you also have to grow it and expand it.
True.
That, it's an analog when we talk about chi or ki or prana. These are all, this is consciousness in the body. And when you do, you'll have better guidance, right? Synchronicities occur. Things just show up in your life. And I remember one of the crazy experiences I had with Carl. I've been working with him maybe a year or two. So a while, but I was still relatively new. Wasn't a master yet, for sure. And we were going to a retreat he was leading in New England. And we were on the same flight, so we shared a cab to the airport together, right? And when we got to the airport, we stood at the back of the security line, and it was just huge, right? And I'm going, oh my gosh, we're going to miss the flight. This is going to be a disaster, right down the negative thinking, right?
Right.
And I remember Carl just said, Brent, don't worry about it. None of that's happened yet. Let's see what happens.
Yep.
And, I'm just there. Oh, we're going to miss the flight, on and on. And about 5 minutes later, for no apparent reason, this lady in a TSA uniform walks up to Carl and says, sir, would you like me to take you and your companion through the first class check-in? There's no line there. And Carl was like, oh, that would be great. So we bypassed the whole line, and 5 minutes later, we're through, right? And here's the crazy thing. I thought Carl must have known her. I figured maybe she's one of his students or a friend of the family or something like that, right? Because Carl had been around LA for decades and was one of those people that knew a lot of people. So I just figured, oh, there's some connection between them, right? She recognized him, did him a favor. And then I asked him, like, hey, Carl, how did you know her? And he laughed. He goes, no, Brent, I've never met her in my life. But things like that happen to me all the time.
Yep.
And I can attest, having spent 10 years as his student and apprentice, things like that happen to him all the time. That's the consciousness, the presence. That's the embodiment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what
The
I
higher
found is,
you vibrate, right?
Yeah.
The higher you vibrate, those synchronicities get bigger and more and more and more. So that the more you're in that higher vibration, then all these things happen all the time. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I guess, what the thing I want the listeners to hear and take away is there's a lot of different ways to do this. And if you are not having a lot of success with the ways you're familiar with, keep looking. That if you've only done like the first gen law of attraction, vision boards and such, you should need to get into the subconscious, right? Start doing NLP or Psych-K or something like that. That will help you tremendously. If you've been using the more conventional healing like we've been talking about, and it's not doing what you want, maybe you need to up your game. That's what I needed. I needed a whole nother generation of technology. And the way I would describe it, like you said, one is the foundation that builds into the other.
Yeah.
That if we look at modes of transportation, if, I'm living in Las Vegas and Jeffrey, you're in what, Melbourne or?
Brisbane.
Lisbon. Okay. Thank you. If I wanted to go from Las Vegas to Lisbon, there's no one mode of transport that takes me there. Right? I'm in the middle of the desert. You can't back up a cruise ship to my front door, right? Instead, if I wanted to go to Lisbon, it'd be simple. I would walk to my car. I would get in my car, drive to the airport, and then get on an airplane and fly over the ocean. I would need 3 ways. Make sense? And most people with solving their problems, better health, getting out of pain, making more money, finding love, getting over trauma or addiction, all these things we need help with. For many people, you need a combination of tools to get you there. There's not always one thing that's going to do the whole job. And I was a full-time healer for 5 years before I discovered the advanced work. I didn't even know it existed. And it took me another 10 years to figure it out. And I look back and go, wow, I'm glad I got involved in this relatively young, or I wouldn't have had time to figure all this stuff out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was only 32 when I had my first miracle happen. And I'm still, learning and understanding, growing all the time. But the third gen work, the movement, is really amazing because it works on the principle that how you do anything is how you do everything. And what it comes down to is you can read someone's source code by watching how they move. You can learn all about their personality, their health. Everything is encoded into our movement. And what Carl had the ability to do, and what he taught me and what I teach my students now, is how to develop that sensitivity so you can watch someone move and see their myths, see their source code, see the stories, the narratives that are literally running and controlling their life. And the reason the subconscious work is so powerful is once you identify the code, you then have to go change it. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. But that's really what it's all about, is what is the code that is fundamentally running you on the inside? And all of it is very deterministic in a way that our behaviors, we think we're all full of free will. That's nonsense. The research has shown your subconscious makes all your decisions for you, period. That's how it works, right?
Yep.
The part where you think you're making a decision, that's an illusion generated in the mind to satisfy the narrative of free will. But really what's going on is we're just like computers running code. And if you want your computer to do something different, you got to change the code.
Yep.
That's simple. And just know, for everyone listening, there's a lot of ways to do that. Some are very easy, like EFT. Easy to learn, maybe not as powerful as some others. The movement feedback holography that I talk about that I learned from Carl is probably the most powerful single modality I've found, but it also takes a little bit of training to be able to apply it safely. That it's not something I like to do with people right out of the box because it's a little gnarly. I would say a good metaphor would be if someone has never driven a car before, don't teach them to drive in an F1 race car. That's a bad fit, right?
Yep.
The race car is way too fast, way too sensitive, going to blow it up or crash. Instead, you probably want to learn to drive on a Toyota first. Then once you've had your license for a year, then I can show you how to drive the race car. And the race car can do things your Toyota can't, right? It can go 200 miles an hour. So that's great. But it takes some training and practice to be ready for it. And that's what the advanced work is really, hey, if are you really ready to grow? And I say that with a warning because growth is generally uncomfortable. And you may need to let go of some beliefs and attitudes and patterns in your life that feel very comforting. But if you're serious about growth, this is how we do it. And, I'll say that being a little desperate or a lot desperate can be an advantage. That's the only reason I was open to this stuff, right?
That's true.
Back when I first met Terry, if I wasn't totally desperate, I never would have wasted my time going to see a healer. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Right. I used to think alternative medicine was for people that were too dumb to see real doctors. But life made me really, really desperate. And I tried it. And I had to be wrong about my attitudes and prejudices, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I had thought my whole life I was so smart, right? Doctors, conventional medicine, yada, yada. I had to confront, I was wrong about that. That's what I mean by it can be uncomfortable. That we have a lot of these beliefs and assumptions and habits in our lives that are kind of running unquestioned. With the advanced work, we're going to put you under a microscope and question all of it. But that's how it works, right? We'll just tell you the truth. This is what is running your life. And what I tell all my students, I want all the listeners to know, I can show you the truth for sure. That's my specialty. I can't guarantee you'll like the truth. Right? I can say E equals MC squared. I can't make you like it. But again, if you really want to grow, and the more willing you are to let go and sacrifice and surrender, usually the easier the process is. That's what I found. And that's why a lot of us have to be in a desperate state before we get our transformation. I don't know about you two, but I've just found uncanny how many times people have to be pushed right to the limit
Yep.
before things change, you know?
Absolutely.
And I've wondered about that. It's like, why couldn't I have met Terry 4 years earlier and saved myself a lot of suffering and time and expense, right?
Yeah.
That's what we have to surrender.
Well, at the end of the day, you wouldn't have given her 1 minute. I
No,
mean, so everything's in divine timing. Everything is
and that's correct.
actually.
And remember, she had only learned healing. She had had her miracle healing in just about a year before. So
Yep.
part of the logical answer is, well, she wasn't doing healing 4 years ago. She was still doing finance full time, never thinking she'd doing anything different, right?
Yep.
Just like in 1997, I still thought I was going to be a software engineer for my whole life.
Yeah, sure.
In 1998, it was over. It's crazy. My career in tech lasted 2.5 years. That's it.
Wow.
6.5 years at MIT for a 2.5 year career.
So my question,
It's so funny. It's funny that when I started growing into the spirituality work, I actually took my engineering degree that I worked so hard for, and I went and threw it in the trash.
Oh,
And I said, "This is not me." I said, "This is not me. I'm not this person anymore." That's how big it was for me, the transformation. It was like,
yeah.
that was somebody who was trying to overachieve so that I could be loved, and I don't need that anymore. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, I think that for some of us that have the really difficult life breakdowns like I did, a lot of that's just because I was so confident and arrogant that I knew better.
Yeah,
And I really had to be brought down,
me
to a
too.
very
I
painful
mean,
place.
yeah, same thing with me. I thought I knew everything.
Yep. And then I slowly realized that some of the most fundamental things I was clueless about. In fact, the one question I'll just give the listeners to think about, for those that want to interact, we'd love to hear your answers. I didn't think about this till I was in my 40s doing deep spiritual study. And it's a simple question. What exactly are you? What is this you that's in your head that has thoughts and feelings, that makes decisions and has experiences and a memory and a body and all that stuff, right? And that's such an important question. But I didn't even ask it. And the reason was simple. I thought I knew what I was.
Right.
I'm like, okay, religion teaches us we're a soul that inhabits a body, and you live your life, and you go to heaven or hell. Okay. And I kind of went, okay, cool, whatever. Little did I know that's, let's just say the short version, totally incorrect, totally backwards. But that's what I mean by we have to deconstruct all these things we think we know, all these models and behaviors, right, that are so embedded in our culture and in our personality. But the good
Yeah,
news is none of it is the real you, right?
exactly.
None of it is the
Exactly.
real you. And it can be a little difficult to disentangle, but that's why I created this technology. That Awakening Dynamics, again, is an integration that takes the best pieces from a lot of different systems and methods and then puts them together in a way that makes it more powerful, that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Yep.
And the way I would describe it is I'm advancing the technology, making it easier, faster, more powerful for you.
Wow.
Because the easier it is, the faster it is, the cheaper it is, the more we'll use it.
Right.
And that's what I've done. Like, for example, with when I first learned the basic healing from Terry, changing one subconscious belief was about a 4 to 5 minute process. There was like this whole set of steps. You had to check it on 4 levels, and you had these different protocols and go through. And it worked. It was just really slow. So you might get through 10 or 12 subconscious blocks in an hour session. Terry and I worked together and evolved the technology. Within a couple of years, we could change beliefs in a fraction of a second.
Wow.
Still the same basic process, right? And there's a lot of ways to change a belief. EFT will work, NLP will work, et cetera, et cetera. There's machines that can do it. A lot of ways. Our goal was to say, what's the easiest, fastest, most powerful? Just to do it, and it's that simple. So when I teach my students energy healing, what they learn is much simpler than what I learned 25 years ago. That you really had to go through about 6 days of training to be able to be a beginning healer. Now I have a program that does it in 5 hours.
Oh,
Again, it's not
wow.
zero, right? It's not zero. It still takes 5 hours, but that's a lot better than 48 hours over 6 days. Why? We just systematically improved it, evolved it, tested it, right? And that's, what I would say to people, that I'm certainly not the right teacher or coach for everyone. That's for sure, right? Um, I don't walk around in robes or wear a lot of crystals. I don't own a Buddha statue or a bead curtain. I'm an engineer, right? There's nothing wrong with those things. That's just not me. I'm about the truth. I'm about what's really going on in your life. Let's face it. Let's fix it. If that appeals to you, and I'm very techie in terms of rational, step-by-step, careful process experimentation, blah, 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 right? All the engineer scientist stuff. If that appeals to you, I think I could make a huge difference in your life. That, basically what you get from working with me is decades of my mistakes corrected so I can give you the answer immediately. Something that took me 5 years of suffering, I'll tell you in 30 seconds. I mean, or, if y'all want to go your own way and do it the long way, don't let me stop you, right? If you want to go bankrupt and be in a bad accident and have cancer and have your best friend die of a drug overdose and all these other things I went through, go crazy. But, I'm here, really, I'm just a lighthouse. I'm here just to illuminate what's there, just to show you the truth of it, right? My goal is I want to light your way, make
So
it easier to get to where you want to go.
your method is not only for healing, it's also for manifesting, right?
Absolutely.
Like, it doesn't
Yes.
necessarily have to be for healing.
I see no real difference other than healing is in the body and manifesting is out of the body. They work by pretty much identical principles, protocols, and laws.
Oh, you're right. Actually, I never thought about that, but you're right.
Yeah, they're almost the same thing.
Yeah, that's
For
very true.
And yeah, just like the lighthouse, I can't control the weather or the ocean, right? Or the shoreline, but I can help guide you from where you are to where you want to be, and that's my job as an engineer. Go, hey, this is where we are. This is where we want to be. How do we get there?
Yep.
And, I'm hoping for all my clients and students, I can make your journey a little safer, a little faster, a little easier, a little more pleasant, by just creating and sharing technology. The Wright brothers invented airplanes. Now we fly all over the world.
So are your classes for your students, are they live, or are you doing just videos? Or
Most of it is self-paced study with live practice groups and exercises. So It's kind of a hybrid. The basic courses people can go through on their own pace. And, we had, again, the quick start is just 5 hours. You'll learn how to do healing, subconscious clearing, manifest from theta wave, basis of movement, meditation, entrainment, right? That's designed to give you plenty to join the live groups we do 2 or 3 times a week. Then people join us live and we do the hands-on part. So it's kind of a hybrid. We have the live and we have the pre-recorded. In the past, I used to do everything live, but it's just so much more difficult with scheduling, right? And plus it costs more. So that's what we do now. And what I have is 2 paths through the material. There's the path through the quick start, where it's like, just show you what you need to know to improve your life. I also have a much longer, more detailed path for people that want to be a professional, that want to work with others, that want to be teachers or practitioners. That is a much longer training. That's about 65 hours. But that's the ABC, everything you need to know to be a professional healer and spiritual teacher and to do this work at a high level. So it's a much bigger investment, but you're getting a much bigger return, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. You might say some people just want to drive the car. Other people want to know how the engine works. So I'm the person that wanted to take the engine apart, right? Learn how it works.
Yep.
But I have both available. Most of my clients and students just want to drive the car, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and I also saw that you do like personal sessions as well. In addition.
So I have a limited availability for one-on-one sessions. And for anybody that is interested, what I want to offer for the podcast, make sure you mention Radio FM 88 Australia. Okay. And when you contact us, anybody that seriously wants to learn more, I'll talk to you for 20 minutes for free. My goal is to get to know you a little bit and give you a custom solution. I don't have a one size fits all. I'm not like trying to sell you into this program. No, you tell me who you are, where you're at, where you want to go, and I'll put together a couple pieces that you need. But again, I say, please only do it if you're willing to spend time and money. It takes both.
Right.
If you're not willing to spend any time, not going to happen. If you're not willing to spend any money at all, watch YouTube. Great. I got hundreds of videos on YouTube. Start there. But if you're serious and want to talk to me, I'll talk to you for free to see if you're a good fit and recommend a path of the tools that will be the most impactful. Which again, I don't know what it is, but that's my goal, is to do that for people, to be your lighthouse, to go, hey, you want to go here, right? You need this, right? If you want to go here, you need this. So, if you need to get around LA, you rent a car. If you need to get around New York City, you get a subway pass or you hail a taxi, right? My goal is to take all the new age stuff and make it simple and easy. Because, I didn't invent any of this stuff. I just kind of figured out how it worked, integrated it, and tried to make it easier for you. As I'm still a technology person, I just work in a different medium now,
Yeah, absolutely.
I never stopped building and tearing down and integrating and figuring it out. And the latest piece, which I'm really excited about, is how to properly integrate AI into personal transformation. So that's what I'm working with very much. My attention every day is developing that. Because what I found is without guidance in a container, AI can be dangerous. It's really powerful.
Yep.
But it can do harm if you're not careful.
Yep.
And I want to show people the right way to use it to get all the power. Be kind of like, we don't let 5-year-olds drive cars, do we? It's not that we don't love them. It would just be dangerous, right?
Right.
So to me, taking a traumatized person and plugging them into AI is kind of like giving a 5-year-old a driver's license.
That's true.
There's going to be a wreck, right? But you take a teenager and train them in how to drive, they're okay. They're ready for it, right? They can do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's what I want to do with people with consciousness, tech, and AI and all this stuff. Work with you to train you up so you can use it safely and effectively. Because when I turned 16, I lived in Southern California. Driver's license was night and day freedom. Are you kidding me? I could go anywhere, right? Anytime I wanted. That's the kind of freedom I want to give people. You can do it. You just need the right tool. You need the right teacher. And
Absolutely.
can you get there? Of course you can. That human consciousness is the most powerful thing in the universe, period. You learn how to apply and direct and use your consciousness, you'll be unstoppable. But again, it's not magic. It's not your life becomes perfect in an hour. It's just a more advanced technology that gives you a process that lets you do things you couldn't do before. Before my arm instantly healed, I would have said that was impossible. Then it happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for the listeners, it may feel impossible to get married or make $1 million or get over your addiction or whatever the thing is. That's okay. You just haven't had the right technology,
Right.
A caveman. Yeah.
Please. Can you give us some of examples of results that people have had using this?
Absolutely. So one of my favorites was Steve Rizzo, who actually became one of the first. He was the first certified master of awakening dynamics other than me. And I met him in 2012. And he had, I'm probably going to say the medical name wrong, polyrheumalgia arthritis, something like that. Basically, horribly painful autoimmune disease. And he was around 60 years old, and his doctor forced him to retire and put him on pain pills. And Steve didn't like that. He heard me on the radio, booked a session with me. We worked over the phone. I did the subconscious clearing. Because again, I find the second gen tech to be very effective for physical healing. That's the first tool I go to. And he told me the next day, he called me and said, my God, Brent, I woke up today and I have no pain. And he went to his doctor and got tested. He didn't have it anymore. It was gone. And he was so excited because he got his old job back, went back to work. And also became a healer. And it was so exciting to work with Steve. Not only did he instantly heal a life-changing disease, a very painful one that's supposed to be incurable. When I first met him, he was $50,000 in credit card debt. Part of that from medical treatment. And it took him 1.5 years to pay it off. Because when I met Steve, I was doing the advanced work with Carl. So I started Steve with the digging work, right? Positive thinking, belief work. And then over time introduced him to the advanced work and had him doing the sessions with me and Carl. And that's what really turned the corner for him financially. And again, it wasn't like he became a multimillionaire. It wasn't like the stories from The Secret, but he got a raise and paid off his debt and was a lot more financially secure. So, that was a great one. I had another one. It was actually one of my very first sessions. I had just done the trainings with Terry back after my first session. And it was someone that had worked as a volunteer at my game companies. And I remember he had had terrible asthma his whole life. And we did one session over the phone. And he told me the next day he went out in the middle of April when all the, hay fever season, and rode his bike for 30 miles and had no asthma. It had never happened before. So just a reminder, though, these are the success stories. It's not always that easy. Not everyone sees a big miracle in their first session. But what I found is with the right community and the right tools and teachings, you will get there. You will get there. It's kind of like getting a black belt. That I've always been into martial arts. You know what they say at my dojo? The only difference between a white belt and a black belt?
Go on.
It's how many classes you've attended.
Okay.
It's that simple. So the point is, everyone can get a black belt if you want to. You just have to show up over and over. If you're willing to do that, you will get there. And with the community and the techniques I've developed, you're not alone. We have live groups 2 or 3 times a week. We need to connect with others. We have to work with others. Everyone has this fantasy they're just going to lone wolf it by watching YouTube for free alone. No one ever succeeds that way. You're welcome to try, right? Knock yourself out. 30 years later, if you want to try something different, give me a call. If I'm around, I'll help. But we have to have a community.
Yeah.
You have to have people that know you, that support you, answer your questions, to work with, right? And vice versa. And almost everyone can get to their goal. I had a woman, this is just before COVID, she signed up for the whole enchilada. All of my classes and programs, my mastermind, she bought every program. I had all my books and like 20 private sessions. And her goal was to get pregnant. She had spent years doing all these fertilization processes and nothing worked. And the doctors had given up on her. They said, "You're too old." And she came to me, and what was funny is she came to one training and we did 3 private sessions. And then she got pregnant, delivered a healthy baby. And just so we're clear, she got pregnant by her husband, right? I worked with her over the phone. Yes. And that was that. But she sent me an email. She's like, "Brent, I won't be continuing. I got exactly what I wanted. Thanks." I was like, cool.
A lot cheaper than in vitro.
Yes, a lot cheaper than in vitro. And I mentioned it because she had bought my biggest package. She bought everything.
Yeah.
But because she had made such a big commitment, the results came very fast.
Yeah.
But again, to be honest, it's not always that easy. I can't promise that result. What I can promise is I can show you the exact same process she used and help you with it. That's what I can do for you. But again, you want big results, it's going to take getting uncomfortable. You have to be willing to let go of that comfort zone.
Right.
If you are, and again, if you're desperate or open-minded, or just understand that we have to surrender, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I would love to work with you. That's exactly who I want. And my specialty, not all my students are head cases, but about half of them are. So that's one of my specialties.
What is it? They're not what?
About half of my students are head cases.
Head cases, meaning
Yep.
what?
Too much in the mind. It's totally stuck in their heads.
Yes.
But not everyone is, but about half of them are. So that's a particular specialty because I was the worst head case of them all.
Yeah.
Carl told me years later, he said, "Brent, when I first met you, you were more in your head than anyone I had ever worked with." And he started doing this full time in the 70s.
Yeah.
So he'd worked with a lot of people.
Yeah, us engineers are like that. That's,
Yep.
I mean, again, that's where we live. We live in the head.
Yep.
That's
Yeah, and I love working with engineers, doctors, lawyers, pharmacists, anyone that is highly educated and ambitious, because you get my references and metaphors. I can move you even faster. But not all my students are like that. A good number of them are just typical New Agers. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You know, they love intuition and mind power, talking to their angels and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And another weird thing about my community, we're pretty evenly split, men and women. And that's unusual in this industry.
Oh my gosh, that is unusual.
Yeah. In
That's...
fact, my highest level group is mostly men.
What?
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
So, you know, again, not all my students are men or head cases or engineers, but if you are, I have a special affinity because that's me, right? And
That's
I think
true.
it's so interesting that the more we do this, we always think we understand things. And then life happens and we realize later we gained an even deeper understanding than we thought was possible, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And that's why I encourage everyone. I'm not saying you don't know anything. I'm just saying don't be attached to what you think you know. Because you might say it like this. You ever gone to like to the mall trying to find a parking spot and you think you see a parking spot and you get up close and then, oh crap, there's a motorcycle there. That's happened to all of us, right?
Yeah.
Why is that funny? Well, the motorcycle doesn't fill the whole space, does it? Not even close.
Mm-mm.
But you can't park your car there if there's a motorcycle in it, right?
Right.
And here's the moral of the story. You can't fit a large size truth into a space where there's already a small truth in the way. That's why we have to let go. And at the beginner levels of spiritual work, it's about letting go of that which is false. And that's pretty easy, right? Things like, I have to be poor to be close to God. We all know that's not true, right? Let it go. At the higher levels of spiritual work, you get more into releasing truth. But this is why it's difficult. But again, we're releasing small truth to allow in a bigger truth. So the mind loves to control and manipulate and understand through ego. If you really want to increase your consciousness and expand your life, we got to give up on that. Do it as long as you need to, right? When you're convinced it doesn't work, give me a call. There is another way.
So how do you deal with self-worth issues, which I, as a therapist and a hypnotist, I found that 99% of the people that came to me all had self-worth issues.
I do it through a couple different ways. Subconscious reprogramming is useful, but probably not enough on its own.
That's not enough.
Yeah. For most people, it's not enough. Still useful to do. A second part is the somatics, the embodiment through movement, combined with, and this is the key, re-regulation of the nervous system. Because a lot of what keeps people stuck in trauma, in pain, in addiction, in cycles is a dysregulated nervous system. And if that's not directly addressed, it will not allow anything else to work for you. And on top of that, at the same time, I also would introduce them to the deep end of the spiritual pool, what we call non-duality or Vaita Vedanta, because that completely redefines your idea of the self. Because let me put it this way, and I'm going to geek out just a little bit here. In order for you to have low self-worth, there must be some self that has low worth, correct?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right? If we redefine what that self is, now it's something totally different than what it was before. Then all the properties of the old self become irrelevant and obsolete instantly.
Yep.
So that's the intellectual piece. That on its own won't do the trick. Mm-hmm. But combined with the block clearing and the embodiment done in parallel with re-regulating the nervous system, that is the key. That allows the nervous system in the body to start to feel safe, to let go, to open up. Without that, nothing's going to change. And this was part of my journey. I had over 2,000 hours of body work. No one could make any difference in my back pain. Well, after surgeries and injections and body work and therapy for decades, not just years, but decades, I finally realized it was a dysregulated nervous system. And when I addressed that, then the pain started to go away forever. So that's a huge piece of it. And that's the piece most often missed. Most conventional therapy and trauma work doesn't know how to re-regulate the nervous system. Clearing the trauma matters. So EMDR, theta healing, something like that, yes, for sure. But if you don't get the nervous system and the embodiment, it generally won't hold. It's like you get a massage and you feel better for a couple hours, and then you're stiff again the next day.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay. So, because I had a friend who got the EMDR done, and yeah, it feels like it's, yeah, like you say.
And what it comes down to is some people get benefit just from doing the EMDR or the trauma release. They're the ones whose nervous system isn't trashed. So it works for them.
But like you say, it kind of sticks for a little while, and then it kind of goes
right.
back.
Most of the time, you'll feel better for a little while, and then you slide back. Why?
Yeah.
The real problem is in the dysregulated nervous system. Clearing the trauma alone will not address that. But still needed to be done, right?
Yeah.
But that's right back to necessary but insufficient.
Yeah.
But yes, and that's the area where I have a really interesting protocol using AI, where people can have an agent that will help them re-regulate their nervous system as we do the subconscious clearing and embodiment. And that, I can't claim it's 100% because nothing is. It's as close to 100% as I found.
Okay.
Again, still not perfect for everybody. And it's a process. It doesn't happen in an hour. For most people, it takes 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
And, same thing, people do psychedelics and all that, and that's great. But it may not do everything you want if the nervous system is trashed. So a lot of the advanced work is rebuilding your nervous system, and it has to be done in a very slow, steady pace. That a traumatized nervous system resists nothing more than a huge overnight change. It just locks up in place, freezes tight, right? No, you just made it worse. Yep.
True.
Just like an aggressive massage, if it's nervous system damage and not muscle damage, is only going to make you sore. You're just going to piss it off. Right? You feel better for 2 hours, and then it's more sore for a week. Right? You just pissed it off.
Yeah.
With the advanced tools, we can actually fix that now.
Okay. Very
cool.
And
that was part of my pain. Part of it was Lyme disease. Part of it was chemical poisoning. Part of it was posture. Part of it was strengthening. Part of it was flexibility. Part of it was beliefs. But the biggest piece was the nervous system.
I think that's probably the biggest piece every time.
Yep.
Every time, because that's where all the other stuff comes from.
Yep.
It's from that system that's not regulated.
Yes, and it's a little complicated and it takes time, but it works. It's really powerful.
Wow.
But and again, not everyone needs that. Some people just need belief work. They're the ones that you do an hour with them and they instantly heal, right? Like I mentioned, my buddy that had asthma. His nervous system was fine. He just had this traumatic experience in his subconscious. We released that, asthma gone.
Yeah, I always wondered how Psych-K worked. Like I used to do Psych-K for people, and I always was. Some people it worked wonders, and other people was like nothing.
And that was how I was the first 5 years when I just learned from Terry. I had my process and my technique, and I applied it, and I just kind of hoped it worked. Now I'm in a totally different place. I just read your code the whole time. I see exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
So it's much easier to manage the process when you understand what's happening.
Yeah.
But absolutely, getting the nervous system in and the embodiment is the huge missing piece.
Absolutely.
And it takes time. There is no way to embody overnight. It's like saying, how can you master the guitar in a weekend? No. It takes at least years of practice to master the guitar. Right?
Yeah.
I don't care if you're using AI or whatever, you have magic fingers, it still takes years. Good news is for the nervous system, it doesn't take years, it does take months.
Wow.
But that's not so bad, right?
Mm-mm.
If you've been in chronic pain for decades, getting relief in 3 months, that's not bad.
Yeah.
But again, not everyone needs that, but some people do. And I do tend to get some of the most difficult cases. There's a whole little network of healers and coaches that send me the people that they don't know what to do with. And it's funny because that's exactly how I met Carl, remember? That I was doing this other energy healing and these other things, and my buddy said, hey, you need to go work with this guy. He's the master, right? Kick me up the food chain.
Yeah.
And I didn't set out to be that, but that's what I ended up being. Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
most of the
Yeah.
time when I get referrals, it's from clients or people that know me that have a client and they go, I just know what to do with this person over my head. Brent, you deal with them. So, and I don't mind that because again, I love the challenge. I'm curious. I'm a visionary,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
The reason I created my allergy protocol is kind of funny. I created an automated allergy protocol because I got bored with everyone calling me to heal cat allergies. Because for a while around 2006, all of a sudden it exploded. I had like 100 people in a month that wanted cat allergies cleared. And I was like, okay, this is great, but I'm bored out of my mind, right? And that was originally why I started creating the automated self-healing programs. Was just, I didn't want to do it over and over. I was bored. And that's again, the technology I've created. I want to automate it, show you how it works, give you a tool. I have an automated trauma clearing program. It takes 20 minutes and it will totally clear about 90% of traumas. Not 100%, but, and you buy it once and use it as many times as you like.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have
So
to pay
it's on
each
your
time.
website.
Yep, it's on my website. That's just one
Okay.
example of the technology.
Okay.
Another is the allergy clearing program. You can buy it off my website, right? You want to clear some allergies? Great. When I had it done, I did the ALCAT panel, which is like a blood allergy test.
Uh-huh.
There were 340 foods and additives I was allergic to. I spent 6 weeks working on it with Terry. When I redid the test, everything was green. I had no allergic reaction measurable. Isn't that incredible? So again, these are just pieces. But the point is, if you know how to use the power of your mind, you can do almost anything. Seriously.
Well, the mind is the computer. So if you can rewrite the code in the
Yes.
mind, then yeah, absolutely. And the body is
You
a
nailed it.
hologram. So
Yes. The body is a holographic projector.
yes.
And you're exactly right. That your life is just a computer program.
Yep.
And it runs just the same way code does. You got a CPU, you got the instructions, the memory, do.
Totally.
If
Totally
you want
is.
your
It's
life to be
amazing.
different, just change the code.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
and I want people to know there's a lot of ways to change the code. There's a lot of ways.
There is a lot of ways. I stopped calling things beliefs, and now I call them programs.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to call it a belief anymore. I'm going to call it a program. So if I want to
program
change
is a more
something-
precise term. I think it's more
exactly.
meaningful. Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, I use them interchangeably. Subconscious belief, code, program, software, the soul. They all mean exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's funny. Do you remember in the 90s, the blonde joke that goes like this? How do you know when a blonde is using your computer?
It's not turned on?
No, your monitor is covered with black marker and whiteout. So that's funny, right? Well, the reason it's funny is you can't fix your computer by drawing on the monitor, can you?
Right.
No, you change the code. It's that simple. But that's how we live our lives. We're running around drawing on the monitor, wondering why things aren't working.
That's true.
Right? I mean, look at most Western medicine. It's just drawing on the monitor, isn't it?
Oh,
it's
God,
not addressing root causes. It's not addressing root causes for the most part. Sometimes it does. Instead, it's designed to be symptom management. That's a lot of modern medicine. You take all these expensive, dangerous drugs to push numbers around on a lab test to make your doctor happy. It's not solving the problem. It's just covering up the symptom, right?
Yep.
Like if you have back pain and you take painkillers, it's not fixing your back, just so we're clear. It's just at best covering up the pain.
Right.
What I want to show you is this is how you change the code.
Right.
And it's that simple.
Yeah. Change the programs. Change the programs in there and you'll change your life. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got two.
The universe has no other choice.
Yeah.
I got two questions for you.
Please.
First is for the three of us, which one of us has asked for this conversation to take place today? Who manifested that?
Oh, I would say it always has to be a joint creation.
Correct.
That we are all delivery vehicles in other people's realities is the way I see it. So basically, you remember the old TV commercials? You got your chocolate and my peanut butter. That's
I'm
what our okay. Oh wow. Oh, disappointing. It's okay. Big in the 80s, right? And what happens is there's sort of a cosmic Reddit out there that we're all posting on. And we're saying, hey, I need a person to do this to me, right? I need a person for this. I need a person for this, including the bad stuff. So it was hard for me when Terry told me that when I had that bad car accident, she's like, yeah, Brent, you put out to the universe, I need to have someone come hurt me. And then some other guy said, sure, I can do that. Fell asleep, ran through a stop sign and boom, hit me. So I would say all of us are kind of putting up a post going, hey, I want to be on a radio show. And you guys put up one going, hey, we're looking for someone to be on a radio show. All this energetically, right? In consciousness. And we go, hey, okay, this works, right? Same thing when we incarnate. We choose our families. We have to interview for a slot in the family. And you talk to the souls of your mother and father. And they have to agree to let you join the line and vice versa. So when we're born, there's a whole bunch of discussions and agreements made before that happens. And the way I understand it, everything is manifested that way. And it looks like we're the creator of our reality because that, in a sense, is true. But ultimately, there's only one of us.
Yep.
So we're just calling in the not self to give the self a relative space to understand and experience itself. Meaning, if we didn't know about hot and cold, we'd have no concept of temperature, would we?
All right.
Right? We wouldn't be,
Or day and night, or
exactly.
good and bad.
Light and dark. Right. If we're all a bunch of bacteria replicating by binary fission, they don't have gender in the way that mammals do. They don't have male and female. They're just freaking bacteria, right? Maybe I'm wrong if one of you is a bacteria specialist, but that's how I understand it. So yeah, we're all here jointly showing up in each other's programs. We all think we're the star of the show, right? But that's the ego. Okay. We're all just, as William Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage and all the people merely players.
Yep.
And we all think we're writing the script. The truth is the script is written through us, but we are not the one writing it. That's
right.
the, pointer to a little deeper truth,
All right, Jeff, and what's your other question?
The other question, I've been waiting 30, 40 years for you, Brent, to turn up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm flattered and humbled, but a little cautious. Oh, geez, that's a lot of pressure.
The only reason I'm saying that is that no one else would actually understand what I'm about to tell you. But when I was 28 years old, I went into a meditation, and I went before I was actually physically born, and I met my mum's parents, my grandparents. And when I met them, my grandfather said to me, "What program are you on?" Now, he had passed away. Mm-hmm. So my grandparents had passed away, but I've gone back in time before I was born, and he asked me what program I was on. So the next day when I went into the meditation, then I actually told them when I was physically in this body at 11 years old, don't forget I'm 28, now I've gone back in time to when I was 11 years old. Mm-hmm. So the very day that we went and saw my grandparents, and I told them what program I was on. But it was my 28-year-old self was the only recollection of knowing the program. Mm-hmm. But my 11-year-old had actually already instructed my grandparents.
Yep.
The next day when I went into meditation, I was standing on a hilltop overlooking this massive city with all its high-rise buildings. And the bloke who was standing next to me said, "Jeff, the program you're on covers every one of those buildings. Every floor is a unit. So on that floor might be 3 units, 4 units, and it represents 1 year. Mm. So every one of those buildings represents the whole program. And one of those buildings was 60 stories. But there was no physical building in those days that was 60. I mean, the closest you get was 42. So I waited until the 60 years turned up, and I thought, okay, well, obviously I've accomplished that one. So the program was quite intrinsical in the terms of understanding all the different subject matter which allows me basically to walk around and introduce. Well, I don't have to introduce myself. Just be in a space where people come in and they will speak about a subject, and there's a kindred soul that I can actually just listen and resonate to what they're saying, and then I'll actually might give them some sort of other direction to have a look at. But so you've come along today, and I really like the concept for the very first time, because I had an experience there when I decided to meet God. So God, when the principle was, I left my body and I stood on the sun, and the sun was only really small. That's how figuratively I was. And a gold thread left the sun and linked up all the different planets, and then linked up the solar system, and then linked up all the other solar systems, and linked up the galaxy, and linked up all the galaxies. And then in a nanosecond, I got told, God stands for General Operating Device. It's a free shareware. All you got to do is ask, and each planet has its own program and its subroutines. So today, this conversation with you, Brent, has been very rewarding for me. And I know that Elisa's really loved it from her engineering background. I really would like to have you back on the show in months to come. Yeah, because I think we're touching not only the Australian listening and audience, but our UK audience and our New Zealand audience, but more importantly, people in America. And I really thank you very much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, this is great to be here. I mean, I'm here because I want to share this with people. I'm so excited about it. Even 25 years later, I'm like, you need to know about this. This is so cool, right? Did you even know this was possible? And especially now with AI and some of the agents I'm building, we are really, I think, in a golden age of transformation. We have more support and guidance and tools and information available than at any point of human history. And like things like, I could not heal my pain even 5 years ago, but I'm getting it today. And, as the work gets bigger, as people innovate, there's some of us pushing the tech forward, right? We're making it better, faster, stronger, more powerful. And I just see every week or two, there's an increase in our ability to transform. And I know there's people listening that feel hopeless, depressed, or deflated, or bad about themselves. Just know those old feelings and beliefs were based on the old way of things, the old set of technology, right? It'd be like 5 years ago, if you wanted to build a funnel for internet marketing, it'd probably cost you $5,000. You needed to have a copy person and a graphic artist and a web person and an ad manager and a media person and a camera, all this stuff, right? Now you can do it in AI in 5 minutes. Mm. The point is, the technology has changed, even from a few years ago. So we can do more than we've ever been capable of before. And, just know you can get to your goal. The question is, are you going to give up?
Yeah.
Just like I guarantee anyone that wants to come to my Taekwondo dojo, if you show up repeatedly over a couple of years, you will get a black belt. It will happen.
Yep. Yeah.
But it doesn't happen always overnight, right? Yeah. If you're really good, you might have it overnight. You might get it fast. But most people, it takes a while. And the same with the inner work. But the technology is to the point most of us can get to where we want to be. And I think that's really amazing.
The question is, why did you manifest this into your reality? Why is Brent coming into your reality? Why is this showing up in your reality? Because sometimes we ask for things and they're delivered and we don't realize that they're being delivered. And so sometimes I've received messages where, I don't do it. And then I get a message like, well, we
get reminded.
That for you. Like we created that for you and you didn't buy it. Like, what are you doing? That was for you. Like, but we could go on and on forever. So I'm going to go ahead and just ask you, how can people get a hold of you? What are your websites, your books, and all that good stuff?
So simple answer is, if you want to learn more about me, go to my website at awakeningdynamics.com. Pretty easy. I also have a YouTube channel. So if you want to learn more, watch some of my videos first, great. That's what it's for. Just hop over there's a link on the website, or just hop to YouTube, type in Brent Michael Phillips. It should come right up. And on the website, it has some, has a handful of testimonials, has a little overview of some of the programs. And, I'm here to be your guide and supporter. The poet Rumi famously said, without a guide, a journey of 3 weeks will take 100 years. So that's kind of my goal, is I want to be your guide, your lighthouse. I don't have all the answers, but I found some really cool stuff that you need to know about, is the way I see it.
Yeah.
And for anyone that's serious, if this is sound like a good fit for you, and you're willing to spend time and money and focus, just like anything, talk to me for free. I'd love to get to know who you are as a person. What are your challenges? What are your goals? And if it's a good fit, I'll map you a path to get there. I'll say, hey, if I were you, I do this, I do this, I do this, right? And sometimes it's as simple as take this supplement. Usually not. It's usually not that simple, but sometimes it is. I've had some people, I'm like, that's easy, just take this, and boom, they heal, right?
Yeah.
Other times, I like to say that transforming your life is like debugging software. There's no one answer to how long it takes or what's involved. All depends on what's in the code. So if you've mostly got really good code, just needs a few upgrades and corrections, we can move you through fast. You're the kind of person that in 3 weeks experiences a miracle. If you're a train wreck like I was, and everything has to be rewritten, it'll take you longer, but that's okay, right? I'm here to support you as long as it takes.
Everything in divine timing. Again, that and always,
Yeah. I mentioned with intuition, it took me 10 years to get comfortable doing intuitive readings. That's a long time. Eventually I got it. For me, it was the embodiment part. I had to do the embodiment part. Then the intuition started to turn on.
Been there, done that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to take anyone 10 years. I'm just saying in extreme cases, it might.
Yeah. And that's
Just
okay.
Like,
There's
if you're
nothing
really
wrong
bad
with
at
that.
karate, it might take you 10 years to get a black belt. Okay. But you will get there. Right?
Yeah.
Keep at it. You will get there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brent. This has just been just a very enjoyable experience today. I am so grateful that you are here, and so thank you so much again for coming. And hopefully we'll get to have you on again and talk about
a lot of fun.
more stuff.
Yeah. You're both great to work with. Would love to come back. 2 thumbs up.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And back to you, Jeff.
All right. Well, I love your work, Brent. Thank you very much, Elise. And till next we meet.